What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com with Dan Courtwright. I am Sean Kellerman. Thanks for tuning in. It was a long, beautiful holiday weekend for all Jayhawks as KU improved 2-0, 46-7 victory over Wagner in Week 1. We're going to talk about that here in the opening segment. We're going to hear everything that Lance Leipold said post-game next segment, and then to close out an abbreviated show today here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com, we are going to do a special Case of the Tuesdays.
Yes.
We're going to save some of our top 10 elements for a Top 10 Tuesday for a different time because, first of all, we want to update you on everything else going on in the world of sports over the long weekend. Of course, the first full weekend of college football, but also because, Dan, the well's running dry on your top 10.
Well,
so
no,
we gotta...
I got plenty of stuff, but I like to save them for special occasions. Plus, you can't go a week without a Case of the Mondays, so gotta fit in Case of the Mondays somewhere, kind of get you guys up to speed on what happened in the entire world of sports. Going to talk a little North Carolina TCU that happened actually yesterday. Going to talk a little Alabama. We get a lot of different stuff on there for the Case of the Mondays on this Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, excited to talk KU football, and let's start with your takeaways, Dan. 46-7. I think everything that you wanted to see in this game, you got a chance to. I was kind of giving you some stuff after our show on Friday because I felt like you named everybody on the roster.
Yeah,
you said,
I want to see a lot from everybody.
I want to see this guy. I want to see that guy. But at the end of the day, we saw just about everybody. A couple guys we did not see that we'll get into here in a little bit are Leshaun Williams and Bengali Kamara, as those two did not play. Leshaun was suited up, didn't see him put his helmet on, but we did see a lot of what you said you wanted to see, which included Emmanuel Henderson
Yes.
breaking out already. He beat Wagner over the top. He went 6 for 130 and 2 touchdowns. You got to see Deuce Highshaw run over some guys, and you got to see a lot of backups as well. So overall, pretty much accomplished what you wanted to.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at this game as a whole, there's a lot you can really pull out of it, right? Obviously, it was Wagner. They're not a fantastic team, so you really wanted to kind of have this sort of just look at some of the other younger guys. But at the beginning of the game, I thought the defense played with a lot of fire underneath them. You saw Taylor Davis running around, pumping his fists. You saw the linebacker crew doing the exact same thing. We saw a lot from Trey Lathan, who I thought had a really, really solid game at that linebacker position. So on the defensive end, I thought everything was good. Everything was stout. Now, again, you're going against a Wagner team who is an FCS school who, won 5 games or whatever it was last year. So not exactly the best competition, but still you like to see the guys fly around with some fire underneath them, even when you are playing against teams like Wagner. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, I thought there were a lot of positives to come out of this game as well, right? We saw JD go for 284 touchdowns. He did have an interception in this game. I thought it was not exactly a well-thrown ball. Also, it was a great play by the defender as well. I mean, the defender obviously got in there, made a one-handed interception. It was a really, really good play by the defender, but also a little bit of an underthrown ball there by JD in the red zone. 18 for 25, still really good completion percentage by JD. You had a couple 3 and outs, and I did write this down in my game notes about how whenever you're playing against a team like Wagner, and now it's not ever going to be perfect, but you cannot have those 3 and outs, especially early in the game when you have all your starters in, right? We saw quite a few of those. We didn't get to see Finn Lappin out there. It was Great Addison at the punter position, but I would rather just not see a punter whatsoever out there when you're playing against a Wagner team. JD had a couple of miscues here and there, had a couple of overthrows, had an overthrow to Doug Emilian. He had a bad pass to Keaton Quebeca in that first half, and then all of a sudden, second half rolls around, first play, 62-yard bomb to Emmanuel Henderson. And talk about a guy who, this is something that we talked about in that Fresno State game, is we wanted to see a lot out of Emmanuel Henderson. We thought that he was going to be their number 1 guy for the entire year. And then all of a sudden, Cam Pickett kind of emerged in that Fresno State game with 2 touchdowns, quite a bit of yards in that Fresno State game. Emmanuel Henderson in this game, 6 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns with a 62-yard touchdown to open up the second half. Really impressive stuff from Emmanuel Henderson. You love to see that. And I think that we learned a lot about this team going in, right? I think we learned a lot about the depth on the defensive end of the ball. where you had Dean Miller get his first snaps of the year, right? He did not play against Fresno State. So I think it was important for Dean Miller to get in there, have his leadership also present on the field going into a game like Missouri. I think it's important to have guys like John Kamara, like Trey Lathan, who, are on the depth chart for that linebacker crew, and have Trey Lathan have a really good game and have John Kamara flying around there. John's going to be starting against Missouri because of Bengali Kamara being out against Missouri. That's at least the way that things are trending as of right now. So you love to see that out of those kind of guys. So you learned a lot in terms of some of the secondary guys really getting their run, right? We saw Harry Stewart get into the end zone. I love to see that. We saw Isaiah Marshall get some snaps. We saw Cole Ballard get some snaps. So again, like you were kind of ribbing me about last week, is what do you want to see out of this game? Well, I want to see a lot from everybody, right? And there was like 70 guys were able to get out there on the field. So I think that's really important to find out, hey, who's a gamer and who's a practice guy, right? You want to see somebody who, you want to weed out the Nathan Petermans and the reverse Nathan Petermans of a guy who is, really good in practice, not necessarily good in the game, or vice versa, who's not very good in practice, but really good in the game. We've seen some gamers out there as well later on in that Wagner game. So really, really exciting to see some of those younger guys get some play.
Well, we pretty much expected this game to be over by halftime, and it pretty much was. The only, I guess, bump was the end of the half on both sides. KU's defense had a breakdown that allowed Wagner a fourth down, 40-plus yard touchdown to make it 29-7. And then you mentioned Jalen Daniels had the interception, which was a very athletic play by the Seahawk defender that made it 29-7 into the break. And then JD came back out and did have a series in the second half, which was brief, a 49-second series that, of course, culminated in that touchdown to Henderson. But yeah, JD, he was very good. I mean, you mentioned he had a couple miscues. He wasn't perfect, but 18 of 25, 280, and 4 touchdowns. The first was to a wide open Deshaun Hanukkah. The second was Henderson's first touchdown. The third was actually to Cam Pickett, and Pickett now becomes the first KU newcomer since 1996 to have 3 or more receiving touchdowns in his first 2 games. So shout out to him. After the Pickett touchdown, and he was wide open over the middle on what appeared to me to be a post route, KU lined up as if they were going for the PAT at 20-0, and then one of the halves of the law firm took the direct snap as Carson Brune took it on quarterback power, essentially it was, and KU went up 22-0 before they would eventually, with Highshaw's touchdown, go up 29-0. Second half, like I said, you got to see a little bit of Cole Ballard, Isaiah Marshall. Isaiah Marshall looked the part. He looked very good, 3 for 3, 28 yards. Harry Stewart, you mentioned his touchdown, his first of his Jayhawk career, so loved seeing that as well. But overall, I mean, pretty much a box score that looked about what we expected. Look at the total yards, 631 to 143 Jayhawks over Seahawks. KU, a lot of rotation. There was a lot of rotation on the offensive line as well. Tyler Mercer got some run at center. You got to see Tavake Tuikilavatu both at left guard and at right guard. You got to see Enrique Cruz a little bit over at left tackle as well. So there was some good things on that front. And then defensively, you mentioned no Bengali Kamara. John Kamara was ejected in this game in the first half, which means he had to miss the second half. He'll be back this upcoming week. But otherwise, guys in the secondary, I know that Dan had said he wanted to see some Mason Ellis. Got to see a little bit of Mason Ellis and different corners getting in there as well. Interesting, the Hawk position. You didn't have Jason Gilliam out there, but you do have Ellis and you do have Saeed Gibbs who were able to go out and get some run too. So yeah, a lot of names being thrown out because we got to see a lot of different guys in what was a blowout win. The most important thing, it didn't appear that there were any serious injuries. We'll see what the future looks like. I mentioned Bengali Kamara not on the depth chart for the Mizzou game coming up this upcoming week, at least at this point. And I mentioned that Le'Shawn Williams was on the sideline. Coach had said earlier in the week last week that he likely was questionable to doubtful, not going to play. It's not as if Kansas needed him, so hopefully he's close to 100% by the time the Mizzou game rolls around. But a lot of things to like, and the most important thing, 2-0, and didn't appear to be any other injuries, Dan. So that was definitely a plus.
Yeah, 100%. And, like you said, it's hard to kind of pull some things out other than the fact of evaluating some of the younger guys in these kind of Wagner games. But one of the things that I did notice is that Wagner had 5 delay of game penalties, which is absolutely huge. And that speaks to the defense on the defensive side of the ball being able to, cause that havoc and cause the kind of the chaos to lead up to those delay of games. Also, the crowd energy. I thought that the crowd energy, yes, it wasn't a sellout, but you were still relatively close to a sellout with over 39,000 people there in attendance, and the energy was still up there and super high for a game like Wagner. So I think that's really important, and it shows you that the defense really can get it done. And we talked to Coach DK today about that hawk position, like you were talking about with Mason Ellis and also Saeed Gibbs. I thought both of those guys played exceptionally well at that hawk position, because we saw them not only in coverage doing really well, but also in the run fits. We saw them getting stops up there, up front. Saeed Gibbs was doing a very good job of getting to the line of scrimmage and stopping some of those run plays. So I thought on the defensive side of the ball, we looked very, very stout. Also, one other thing that I did want to bring up is in the return game, the punt return game, and more specifically, Tate Nagy. Man, that guy just wanted to return everything.
Man, and I absolutely loved it, right? I mean, it's literally, you might as well call him Dante Nagy with trying to do that. I mean, trying to channel his inner Dante Hall. But hey, you know what? It's not always the most textbook catch, it seems, but he's caught it every time so far, and he's trying to break the big one. We saw Kubeka get a couple chances there at the end, but yeah, Nagy, he definitely wants to break one, and you could hear it at the booth. You could hear the crowd anytime he touched it, like ready to just explode, and he's going to get one at some point, and we're excited for that. The strangest thing about this game, which again was a 39-point Kansas win, is KU was actually -2 in the turnover battle. So, so every time somebody's previewing a football game and talks about the importance of turnovers, I guess that's not always true. It helps when it's FBS against FCS, a Power 4 FBS against FCS, but a little bit strange that KU wasn't able to force any turnovers on the Seahawks. That is something, now that I just said that KU is going to have to do this upcoming week in Columbia. We're going to have all sorts of coverage of the border war coming up here on KansasNation.com. But yeah, the turnover battle only being -2 was quite strange for KU.
Let's talk about that. Well, I testament to Tommy Dunn and DJ Withers and those guys getting a bunch of pressure up front. But I mean, that's the elephant in the room right now. It's Mizzou week, right? I mean, you have essentially a long week because KU played on Friday, and going into this week against Missouri, which a lot of the guys really don't understand how big of a rivalry this actually is. I mean, Lance even said that he didn't understand how big of a rivalry this was until he actually got here to Kansas. He said in his press conference that somebody came up to him in church on Sunday saying, "Hey, kick their butts," basically, and he was like, "Oh, this is, we're in church, like you can't be talking like that." But so that was kind of funny. But yeah, it's like to guys like us, right? To guys who grew up watching this rivalry, we understand the extent of how deep this thing goes. Where a lot of the other guys, they don't really know it, and we heard from Coach Leipold today, as well as Deshaun Hanukkah and Calvin Clements and some other players that they put together a video of former players telling these guys how big of a rivalry this actually is. And obviously Daryl Stuckey, who's on the staff, was talking about it too, talking about how, hey, you guys don't understand, like that this rivalry brought out a different side to me, a side that I don't even want my children to see, basically. So yeah, I mean, just this day, I never thought this day would come, right? Because whenever Mizzou left to go to the SEC, I thought, man, this is taking away one of the, if not the greatest rivalries in all of not only college football, but all of college athletics. And I was bummed to see that the border war is not going to be happening for the foreseeable future. And now it's here, and the hatred still runs deep. The dislike, at least how Don Frambro would say it, still runs that deep. So it's just something inside of me feels different, right? I've been wanting football to come since February, right? Since after the Super Bowl. We got Fresno State. We got Wagner. This week feels different.
Yeah, no doubt. And Kansas one game back in the all-time series against Mizzou. 56-55-9 is the record that Mizzou holds a slight edge on. And, it's strange because you said you never thought we'd get to this point. KU hasn't faced Mizzou since 2011. So it's been 14 years, and it was strange kind of hearing some of those guys. Like, I never thought growing up that we would be in a situation where KU players are asked about the rivalry, or has anybody told you about this? Just because that's what it was, right? KU Mizzou was the game. It was the one you circled, and K-State fans hate when I say this, and maybe this isn't as much true anymore because K-State and KU have been in the conference together at the same time, but it went from having a game that you circled on the calendar with KU Mizzou to not having a game circled on the calendar for KU fans. I mean, because it was KU Mizzou. That's what it was, and since then, there isn't that game. Well, now that game is back. It doesn't mean the same. We know that because it's not conference. It's not a conference game, but it's still an opportunity for KU to go to Faurot Field and knock them off and pick up what would be a marquee win. Whoever wins this game, in my opinion, is going to be ranked. And we'll have to wait and see. Mizzou had an impressive showing, 61-6 over Central Arkansas on Thursday, so they actually have a slightly longer week than Kansas does as the Jayhawks played on Friday. But, yeah, it's interesting just kind of walking by and seeing all the scenes of the booth this practice week. You're hearing some things that you don't normally hear here in Lawrence regarding fight songs or chants, just kind of trying to prepare the guys for what it's going to be like on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of like what you were talking about with Calvin Clements. I asked him today about what this meant to him, because obviously he grew up in Lawrence, and he basically said that the last time they played, he was 6 years old. So it's to him, growing up when he was 6 years old, always was K-State, right? Because he just didn't know how deep this rivalry went until some of the older people that he had talked to kind of really laid it down for him. And Sean Haneke, even Topeka native from Hayden High School, talked about how he went to one Mizzou game when he was kind of a kid. He's one of the older guys, if not the oldest guy on the KU football team right now. Talked about how he went to a Mizzou game as a kid, but kind of he always thought too that K-State was the biggest rival, and that's just goes to show you how deeply this Kansas team and the Kansas nation around it just needs this rivalry to be back, because the rivalry, it's good for college athletics. It's good to have these kind of rivalries. Yes, you have the in-state rival with K-State, obviously, but this thing goes back deeper. It goes back to the Civil War. It goes back to bloodshed. It goes back to, good versus evil, essentially, in terms of just history, right? So and I'm going to get all worked up about this, but this rivalry is good for college athletics, and I hope to see it continue for the foreseeable future. I think it's important that people understand where this started, how this started, the history of how it started, and just how deep this thing goes.
Well, there are a lot of people who say in situations like this, all right, I just hope it's a really competitive, fun college football game. I don't see it that way. I want KU to go down there and win by 100. I don't care. I don't like them. Yeah. Never have. And I grew up, as you know, I grew up on the state line, and it's interesting talking to the players today. Like you said, they didn't grow up going to KU Mizzou games because it wasn't happening. When I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, however long, like. That you're going to school the next day, and this game is going to affect how you're going to school.
Yeah,
I guess.
Went to high school on the Missouri side, right?
Yeah. No, I think I'd have to double check that. Anyway, the point is, it's going to be a big week here on KansasNation.com. Dan mentioned Kansas Nation. Check out KansasNation.com for the best coverage leading up to and during the Mizzou game, as we're going to have that for you. Before our first break, we're going to kick it to first an update real quick on KU volleyball and KU soccer. KU volleyball, it's been a tough start from a win-loss standpoint this season. They are 1-3. Their 3 losses are to 3 teams all ranked in the top 12, and they're all 5-set affairs. We just saw earlier today, KU, who was ranked number 14, they are now number 15. Despite a 1-3 start for Matt Ulmer's crew, a 5-set win over Vanderbilt. After that, successive losses to number 2 Penn State, number 8 Wisconsin, and number 12 Creighton. So a lot of heartbreakers early, and they haven't gone KU's way, but you're seeing a lot of contributions, particularly from young girls like Jovana Zelenovic, Selena Laban. Those are both freshmen. Kristen Klein is a sophomore, as is Reese Patak. So there is a very bright future for Kansas volleyball. Matt Ulmer, a guy with a championship pedigree, they're going to start winning. You just feel for them that they haven't been able to get one of these 5-set victories against a top 15 team, but it'll come, and hopefully that's good experience for them down the road.
Yeah, and speaking of nationally ranked Jayhawks, KU soccer, they are still unbeaten as of right now. They defeated Drake. I know you're a big Bulldogs guy yourself.
yes.
They're your number 2 team. They beat Drake 3-1 on Sunday night. Now they're 4-0-2 as Nate Lee. He has really gotten them whipped into shape, and I feel very confident about this KU soccer program. It's their 4th home game of the season. They surpassed last year's total of 3, and the most wins at home since 2022. Like I said, this 6-match unbeaten streak to begin the season is the longest since 2023 when Kansas began the year 3-0-4. They scored 3 goals for the 3rd time this season. That's 13 over the span of 6 games. So really impressive stuff from the KU soccer program.
The Kansas cross-country teams began their seasons strong over the weekend. The women's team took home gold, and men's team placed 2nd at the Bob's Timmons Classic as well. So we'll keep you updated with everything going on with KU athletics. Well, we know what week it is here regarding KU football. Check out all of our coverage. We're going to have great guests on. After this, we're going to hear some post-game thoughts from Lance Leipold after the victory over Wagner. You're watching KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City. Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com. It's not Monday, but it sure feels like one after the Labor Day holiday weekend. Hope everybody enjoyed it. The good thing is, even though you might be having a case of the Mondays, football will be here before you know it. Thursday night football coming up, Cowboys,
That's right.
Eagles, and then Chiefs, Chargers coming up on Friday. We're going to have coverage of that as well. Excited for week 1, and maybe the Chiefs will get a win. That's something they didn't do.
Certainly hope so.
In August.
Yeah.
15-2 last year, though, in the regular season games that mattered. All right, time for our Case of the Mondays, which we're breaking out on this Tuesday, first day of the work week. And I got to start, Dan, with something that happened to me over the weekend. So I'm in the garage, and we're finally getting to the point where we're getting rid of these boxes that have been there for a month since we moved. All right, so we're going through the tubs, we're sorting, we're stacking, that sort of thing. And I have a couple boxes of sports memorabilia, as I'm sure you would expect. I had one box that's got, I have boxes with like credentials and that sort of thing, but this box has got baseball cards. I've got 4 2-inch binders of baseball cards, and then I've got shoe boxes inside this big U-Haul box full of basketball cards, football cards, whatever. So I open this box that's on the floor of my garage, and I pull out one of the 2-inch binders, and wouldn't you know it, I see a little furry friend scurrying around in there. Absolutely disastrous. So I luckily didn't have a high-pitched shriek as my wife was standing right there, but I did immediately close the box and back away, and I said, there's a mouse in there. So there was a mouse in there.
You weren't like the mom from Tom and Jerry, like...
Yeah, no. Thankfully, I didn't do that, but it gets worse.
Okay.
Much worse. So there's a mouse in there, so we got to get it out, right?
Sure, of course.
Got to get the mouse out of the house. So I am trying to figure this out. And again, unfortunately, this U-Haul box is rather large, and it's pretty heavy. It's got all these binders and everything in it. Open the garage and just kind of, nudge the box out to just outside the garage. And I'm like, okay, well, the option at this point is probably to dump it, right? And just dump it on the driveway.
You think.
So I eventually, slowly, actually, I put it off for about 30 to 60 minutes, and then it starts to rain. So I slowly have the box out there. I'm like, okay, it's raining. Things are getting wet. I have to take care of this now. So I kick the box over, and I got baseball, basketball, football cards all over the driveway, and now they're getting wet. And that's absolutely great because, there's some good stuff in there.
Right,
like
yeah,
I haven't had a chance to look through it.
The one thing you don't want to have,
right?
Baseball or football cards.
So literally, I found a 91-92 Michael Jordan card in there, and it's wet. So, but anyway, I kicked it out because I'm like, I got to get this mouse. All right. Well, inside, like I said, there are many boxes inside this box. Sure. As you know, I'm an efficient packer.
Yeah, of course.
But as I kick everything over and I'm trying to figure out where this mouse is, my wife spots underneath one of these small boxes is a little baby mouse.
Oh, no.
That is moving and is dead. So this mouse had given birth, I then later find out after all this, to 3 different baby mice.
No.
So then once I'm going through the literal thousands of cards trying to pick them up and make sure that they're not completely ruined, I'm having to move all these little boxes with my snow shovel, and then I have to eventually scoop up these tiny baby mice into the snow shovel and dispose of them.
You monster.
It was awful. It was absolutely awful. Meanwhile, my wife is the whole time saying, essentially pressuring me. Her family grew up on a farm, so pressuring me to doing this faster, and also saying, all right, this needs to happen. Do you want to go live in the country? That sort of thing. I get it, but she's not exactly being helpful. She's filming me as I'm doing this, and she's saying, "Okay, well, we just got to get it out. It's raining, that sort of thing." And then at the same time, she's saying, "Oh, the poor baby mice." I'm like, "Well, what is it?" Because I can't. So anyway, that was a case of the Monday situation.
Right. Well, you're because you grew up on
I'm a city boy. Yeah,
you're a city boy. You're one of the Johnson County elites, and no, you just never had to deal with mice before.
And I get it. I totally get why she's saying, we got to get rid of it, that sort of thing. But then don't also say, "Oh, but it's just so sad."
Right. Yeah.
Well, what do you? Yeah, I'm like, you're not helping at this point.
Faster getting to the body.
Right. So be very careful. And it was a disaster. So
yeah. I view one bit. You know what would make this better? Also, your daughter would appreciate this too. Get a cat.
Yeah. That's true. True.
But you don't like animals.
Yeah.
Any animals. You like bunnies. That's it.
I do like bunnies.
He hates dogs.
I'm not a big fan of mice. But yeah, that was rough. When you saw the baby mice crushed under that little box, it was rough.
I can't imagine. Yeah, no, that's
It's fun opening a box that you're thinking is just a bunch of stationary things, and there's a little mouse.
A snow shovel for it.
Yeah, I didn't have something
trash bag,
softer.
nothing.
I know. I didn't want to completely ruin dirty gloves by I'm not going to get into it anymore. But anyway, that was rough.
That's tough.
Let's talk football.
All right, let's talk football. Case Mondays for the Dallas Cowboys. We haven't actually talked about this yet. The Dallas Cowboys have been in the news because yet another one of their star players in the DFW area has been shipped off for nothing, and that's Micah Parsons. Has officially been signed with the Green Bay Packers. The official trade is the Packers, they get Micah Parsons. The Cowboys, they get 2 first-round picks and a frontline player. And basically, when Jerry Jones was asked about this, he said, "Yeah, well, we have 2 first-round picks. They could eventually turn into Micah Parsons." Jerry, you had Micah Parsons. You don't ship away Micah Parsons for maybe Micah Parsons in the future.
To be fair, Micah Parsons didn't want to be there.
He did not want to be there. You were absolutely correct.
4 years, $188 million.
So, no, but here's by the way, he's getting paid an enormous amount of money. But here's the thing: Jerry Jones refused to go through his agent. It didn't make sense. Micah Parsons is like, "Hey, talk to my agent." Why do professional athletes have agents? It's to deal with things like this. The entire reason you have an agent is for negotiation for your contract, basically. That's like the one thing, at least like the majority of their job is to do, right? And so Micah Parsons is like, "Hey, let's get a deal done. Talk to my agent." Jerry Jones basically said, "No, I'm not going to talk to your agent. I want to talk to you. I want to sit down and have a nice glass of Johnny Walker Blue and smoke a cigar."
Hey, Johnny Blue, I respect that.
We'll talk this out like men. Jerry, it's the 21st century. That's not how things work.
You can get a
anymore.
bottle of Johnny Blue for $2.29 at Costco if you play your cards right. I know, but I'm just saying if you ever do. It's good.
Jerry Jones, he looks like a Johnny Blue kind of guy.
Man. Well, yeah,
but that's the way that he wants to do. It's very old-fashioned of him. He wants to sit down in a smoky speakeasy somewhere and talk it out over a 50-ounce steak with Micah Parsons. It's like, no, that's not how the world works anymore, Jerry.
That sounds great.
To go through sure, it sounds fantastic, but you have to go through the agent, especially when you're talking this kind of money. Also, Jerry Jones was asked about, because he obviously the Cowboys, they do not have a general manager. Jerry Jones acts as the general manager. Jerry Jones was asked why he's the acting general manager and he doesn't hire one. Jerry Jones said it's because he likes the pain.
What?
He likes the pain. He likes the fact that he has to deal with all this by himself. And I hate to break it to you, Jerry, you're not good at it. You have to hire a general manager whose sole job it is to be able to do this kind of stuff. Not just because you're some rich oil boy who fell into money back in the 1950s or whenever that was, and you decided to throw some money at an NFL team and it became the biggest thing in the world. That doesn't mean you're qualified to do this kind of thing, and it clearly is not, because they traded away Micah Parsons, arguably the best pass rusher in football, for 2 first-round picks and a frontline guy. It doesn't make sense. It absolutely doesn't make sense. So the case of Mondays for anybody who's a Dallas sports fan, because within a calendar year, they traded away Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks and Micah Parsons from the Dallas Cowboys. What a roller coaster, because they just got, by the way, Cooper Flagg and Paige Beckers. So they have 2 stars coming in that just kind of got, handed to them basically, because the Dallas Mavericks, they won the lottery and got the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. But losing Micah, imagine losing Bobby Witt Jr. and Patrick Mahomes within a calendar year. I don't think I'd ever watch sports again. Yeah. I would be so viscerally upset at the world that it would turn me into the opposite of a sports fan.
Hey, what's going on in Alabama right now? It's Case the Mondays for Kalen DeBoer and Bama. A couple touchdowns. They were expected to go to Tallahassee and knock off your boy, Tommy Castellanos and Florida State. All of a sudden, Thomas Castellanos and Florida State, a team that won 1 game last year, right? Yes. With your boy, DJ Uyunglele. Yes, they're all your boy.
Is he still?
No. He's mucking around. I think on a practice squad. I think he's on a practice squad somewhere. Anyway, but Florida State had no problem, and Kalen DeBoer is now setting records of, for lack of a better word, futility at Alabama following Nick Saban. A tough act to follow, but this is not a good start. Bama loses by multiple scores, and, the SEC chants were coming out hot in Tallahassee, and Florida State all of a sudden how long has it been? It hasn't been that bad. 12 months or so of them dealing with disappointment. They actually now are feeling good about themselves, and Alabama is probably feeling worse about themselves in terms of their football program than they have in a long time.
So here's the thing. Nick Saban, in his entire time he was at the University of Alabama, he lost 4 games to unranked opponents. Do you know how many Kalen DeBoer has lost?
He also lost
He has lost 4 games to
including Vanderbilt. Including Vanderbilt. Yeah.
That's something that you absolutely cannot do.
Well, and it was one-sided. That's the other thing.
Yes,
it wasn't a
absolutely was. Yeah, no, look, in Florida State, I think Mike Norvell is still a really good coach. Don't get me wrong. I do think Mike Norvell is a good coach. I think Tommy Castellanos is a solid quarterback. He's fun to watch. But at the same time, if you're Alabama, you absolutely cannot lose a game like that to Florida State. It's just I don't know. Unfeasible to me.
Well, isn't it interesting that we're going to go from the GOAT essentially of college football coaching and Nick Saban to the GOAT of NFL coaching, as they say, and Bill Belichick. It's so strange that North Carolina had Mac Brown and Bill Belichick. Hey, everything was shiny and pretty after one drive offensively.
And that's not just his girlfriend.
For Gio Lopez in North Carolina, as they were up 7-0 on TCU. Frogs would absolutely blow them out, 48-14. Gio Lopez, this is a stat I know we both saw, Dan. He went over 2 hours, 2 hours and 8 minutes in between completed passes. Josh Hoover and TCU offense did whatever they wanted. The TCU defense, a couple touchdowns off turnovers, and that honestly was kind of needed for the Big 12. They were 0-3 was the Big 12 against other Power 4 teams in week 1 before that last night. So good on them. But Belichick, everything was looking good for the first 15 minutes of real time, and then it all fell apart. And Gio Lopez also suffered an injury, which never like seeing that, just a rough night at Chapel Hill.
Yeah, rough night, obviously. I mean, look, at the beginning, I thought that they did look good. Gio Lopez, the opening script, which granted it's always scripted out, right? The first, at least opening drive, maybe even the first 2 drives, always going to be scripted out. They looked good. And apparently Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless both thought they looked good too. I got a couple of tweets for you that I want to share. So Skip Bayless, this is after the first drive from North Carolina. They went down the field like a hot knife through butter, right? They did look good in that first drive. Skip Bayless said, wow, Bill Belichick has a national championship offense. Heels just shredded the Frogs defense. National championship offense after 1 drive. Skip Bayless said this. This one's even crazier. Colin Cowherd from Fox Sports. This is what he said. He said, wasn't really sure what to expect from Chapel Bill. After that drive, I have him as the 2nd best college coach I've ever seen, just below Nick Saban. One drive. It took him one drive
Yeah.
to say, you know what? He's the second best college coach I've ever. Put him in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, you know what?
And then all of a sudden,
tweets like that are sent out so that people talk about them.
That aged like milk sitting in a July day.
It is. Skip Bayless has so many great tweets that age terribly. I love it.
It's so good. Both of those guys are just unbelievable. And like I said, they did look good. But, oh, man, they brought out – because it's so funny because last year, I believe, for Deion Sanders, I believe TCU was their first game too. So it's always fun to see TCU kind of just being the other team that where they bring the circus to town.
Well, it's good that they showed up for those. They certainly didn't show up in the national championship a couple years ago.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. Man, that was
just
rough
a terrible
game,
showing.
No, like Michael Jordan was there, Roy Boy was there, Lawrence Taylor was there. I mean, there was a lot of heavy hitters that were in Chapel Hill, and by the end of the game, it looked pretty barren there. So that was if you feel, I don't know, I don't even know how to feel. Do you feel bad for Bill Belichick by getting beat by that much?
Not at all. Really I'm cheering for the Big 12 on that front. I do feel bad for Gio Lopez. Hopefully he can get back from injury. What else you got on here? We got some baseball flair as well. No pun intended, as Sean Newcomb of the Athletics. Don't call me the the Sacramento Athletics. They had an NFL day, and he got to wear a jersey of his favorite player.
Yes, he did. Oh man! So I'm glad you brought this up. So the Sacramento Athletics that's how I will be referring to them for the foreseeable future, even when they move to Vegas. I'm going to call them the Sacramento Athletics. So yeah, they had a football-themed entrance to their game on Saturday. They had some guys come in. They had a Garrett Wilson jersey, which I thought was fun. They had a Josh Allen jersey, Dak Prescott jersey. And Sean Newcomb, who is a Massachusetts native, he came, obviously big Patriots fan, right?
Yeah.
Massachusetts native. He came to the game in a Patriots number 81 jersey. Now, I don't know if you're history buffs or not, but there's a very particular player for the New England Patriots who wore number 81, who did not have a good post-football career, and that is Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was number 81, and that is a crazy look to wear that. But after further investigation, we found out it's not an Aaron Hernandez jersey. It is, in fact, a Randy Moss jersey.
Investigating the other side of the jersey.
I forgot that he wore number 81 for the Patriots.
Yeah.
So
I would have, but I totally agree. I would have seen Aaron Hernandez. Isn't it strange?
My eyes caught it, and I was like,
because Randy Moss is one of the best of all time, and he had incredible. I mean, he was huge on the Patriots team that went undefeated.
Right, but you do kind of get a little over.
It's strange.
Imagine all the other 32s for the Buffalo Bills. You know what I mean? It's like you see the number 32 for Buffalo Bills, you go, that's OJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's OJ.
Yeah.
You can't look.
Devin Singletary came to mind.
It's weird because
26.
Randy Moss was number 81, but it's completely overshadowed if you were a Patriots Randy Moss. I mean, Patriots Randy Moss jerseys cannot be selling very well just because of the fact that it's number 81.
I'm betting they're selling a little bit better than Aaron Hernandez jerseys. So. Right.
That's probably like the one guy who they sell better for. Oh my gosh! Hey, Case of the Mondays for Devin Hester. Yes, that Devin Hester, the former Chicago Bears legend, former Miami
Hall of Famer,
Devin Hester. So there's a new Devin Hester in town. That's why it's Case of the Mondays for Devin Hester. Devin Hester Jr. for Furman University, the Fighting Paladins.
The Paladins. Good poll.
Had a 70-ish yard kickoff return. Devin Hester Jr.
Must be his son.
So you heard me right. Yes, so I'm getting there. So Devin Hester Jr. for Furman had a long kick return. Devin Hester Jr. and Devin Hester, the Hall of Famer for the NFL, not related. What are the odds that Devin Hester, arguably the greatest kickoff return man of all time, and there's another Devin Hester Jr. in college right now, returning kicks for long yardage. What are the odds that there's two of them and they're not related?
How about Dante Hall and Devin Hester both being brought up in this this show? Yeah,
big special teams guys.
Tate Nagy's coming up next, right? Yeah, that is strange. But shout out to Furman, the Paladins. Yeah, they paid a visit to Allen Fieldhouse this past year.
Fighting Paladins. Yeah. Shout out to them. And then I got a couple of more. So case of the Monday is for children if you're at a tennis match. So, in case you missed it, so Carlos Alcaraz was, after Wimbledon's going on right now, and he was signing different things for different fans, and took off his hat and was handing it to a kid, and some guy who 30, 40 maybe years old snatched it away from this kid. The worst possible thing you could ever do.
It is strange. Interesting. I was out in the outfield seats Sunday for the Royals-Tigers game, which we did not score. Tarek Skubal was on the mound. But Riley Green, the all-star outfielder for the Tigers, at the end of every inning would throw a ball up, and like my nephews are there, and this is not to have sour grapes or anything, but I felt like every time he threw it up, it was to a dude who's like our age.
Right, and I'm like, if you ever, by the way, if you ever get a home run ball or a foul ball or whatever it
got to give it to a kid.
You have to give it to a kid. You absolutely have to give it to a kid. If you have a kid anywhere within 10 feet around you, hand it to the kid. That's just the way that you have to do those things.
What's the age that you have to start doing that, though?
So I got a foul ball.
Like you're 27.
Yeah.
So
I don't. I think once you turn
28.
I didn't say like 17, 18.
Yeah.
Like you then you have to start.
I agree. I think it's probably. Yeah, it's teens.
Like
it's somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, like when you're able to drive, pretty much. Like
for you though, once you turn 28, you're done keeping them for yourself.
Yes, once I turn 28. Yeah, I'm not done yet. You're out there. No,
Rest
but
of the year.
So anyway, but there was it's not Wimbledon, it was the U.S. Open. But apparently, people started diving into this. The guy who stole the hat from this kid, he was a Polish millionaire CEO, and he put out a statement about this. He said, the recent incident at the tennis match has caused a disproportionate online uproar. It's all about the famous hat, of course. Yes, I took it. Yes, I did it quickly. But as I've always said, life is first come, first serve. What? It's a child.
He's not exactly tired.
It's a kid. You cannot say, hey, sorry, it's first come, first serve, you 8-year-old. I'm a Polish millionaire CEO, and I'm going to snatch this hat because guess what? I'm bigger than you, and it's first come, first serve. You got to have the right mindset. What an insane thing. Be a human being for once in your life.
That's quite the apology that he put forth there, right?
I know, you didn't even apologize. He also went on to say, I understand that some people might not like it, but please, let's not make a global scandal out of the hat. It's just a hat. If you were faster, you would have it.
Speaking of scandals, you know who's probably happier than anybody that football is back?
Who?
The Coldplay couple.
Yes.
Because people ain't talking about them anymore.
Man.
Football is back.
Man, shout out to the Coldplay couple. That was fantastic.
Hey, you know what? Good stuff to talk to you. What's your last thing?
I got one more that I wanted to get to. Case of the Mondays for the Georgia Tech equipment manager and also rappers from the 2000s. So Georgia Tech, I couldn't find his name. So apparently number 43 for Georgia Tech. There's obviously this rule in college football where you can have two of the same number, but they can't be out there at the same time. So you see a lot of people with tearaway jerseys or just bigger jerseys as they put on over them. Well, Georgia Tech was playing against Colorado over this past weekend, and number 43 is his number.
It's always 43, isn't it?
It's always 43. He literally had like a triple XL jersey on that was just, I mean, the jersey was wearing him, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most insane thing. And I understand it if you're like, on the line or, just like another guy like running down the field for kickoff or whatever. You can have one of those big jerseys. But if you're a punt returner, you don't want to have anything loose hanging on you. I mean, he literally looked like he was like wearing like a soldier boy
and
type
so much
of
easier to
jersey.
tackle. So much easier to tackle.
Absolutely.
Just grab him.
Exactly. It's so much easier to tackle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. Georgia Tech to go on to win the game.
They did. Yeah. So, case the Mondays for Dion and the Buffaloes. It was 27-20. Yellow Jackets won that despite the jersey mishap, if you will call it. That's our case of the Mondays on this Tuesday. You're watching Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com and listening on ESPN Kansas City. Welcome back, KansasNation.com. Well, hey, make sure you're tuned in all week on Rock Chalk Sports. We're going to have special guests, Henry Greenstein, Brian Haney. You're going to hear from David Lesky from Inside the Crown to talk a little Royals baseball as well. Most importantly, though, for the first time in 14 years, Dan, as we talked about, KU is taking on Mizzou in football as they're going to head to Faurot Field, hopefully come back in one piece, hopefully come back with a victory and a 3-0 record. I had to showcase this this frame that our good friend David Lawrence gave us. This is a frame of Don Fambro from way back when, and it's a note to David. So very cool. Nobody hated Mizzou and loved Kansas more than Don Fambro. So, yeah, you got a couple photos of Don and a ball cap, and, of course, during his playing days, and then when he was a coach at Kansas. So if KU wins, hopefully it's to make Coach Pham very proud. And David Lawrence, a friend of the show as well. We've had him on, and I know that he'll be excited with the rest of the guys at the Jayhawk Sports Network heading down to Columbia.
Yeah, 100%. And, going back and watching any old Don Fambro highlight of him talking about Missouri or just, talking about the rivalry, it just gets you so amped up. So I cannot wait for this upcoming weekend. I mean, like I said it in the opening segment, and I'm going to say it again. Football's back, but this week it's different. It feels different.
It feels different, that's for sure. You're going to hear throughout this week on KansasNation.com from Lance Leipold, DK McDonald, also from Jim Zabrowski, KU players as well. Also, make sure you find us on our socials, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We're going to have Taylor Davis as well. Make sure you find our YouTube and hear everything that Taylor Davis has to say. As we talked about, a little bit different when the guys need to be educated just a tiny bit more than they used to be regarding KU, Mizzou, and the border war, which is now, Dan, called the Storage Mart Border Showdown.
Yeah, I will never, ever call it the border showdown.
Well, the one person who was more
it's not a showdown.
against it than anybody was Coach Fambro.
Right.
And it does feel like a war. And like we talked about, and like everybody knows, it goes back to the days of the Civil War. Just can't wait for kickoff. It's going to be at 2:30 at Faurot Field in Columbia. After that, Kansas has their first open week, and then the first two games of conference play are both going to be here in Lawrence at the booth against beatable teams, I would say, for sure, in Cincinnati and West Virginia. West Virginia had a blowout victory over Robert Morris. Cincinnati, of course, lost to Dylan Raiola and Nebraska at Arrowhead in their first game. So a lot of excitement, but it's all about KU, Mizzou, and, let's just say that we hope that there's some Reesing to Meyer magic in Columbia, and that a lot of those fans get home very upset.
I certainly hope so. Yes, and I hope the KU fans get back without having to run into any upset Mizzou fans as well.
Well, we're going to have all sorts of coverage leading up to that game, and then next week, of course, hopefully we'll be basking in the triumph of a 3-0 non-conference season, and probably more importantly, if we are talking about our hearts, of victory over Mizzou in the border war. So keep up with us on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City.